Here. Shoot.
All right. The Hangout is on the air. We're on the air.
Fantastic. Oh, that's right. It doesn't work. That's right. I remember now. For some reason, links within forgot, who knows? I mean, within Keynote, they break.
Oh.
But I can just do this. So it'd be rocking and rolling that way. Yeah, see? I'll just open it up now. See, this is the hack. Uh-huh. All right. So, well, fantastic. Okay.
I had an error with my app. So let's
Your app?
Yeah, it's telling me it's not broadcasting.
Oh, I see.
Lovely, lovely technology, right?
Well, it's great when it works.
So I have the
Well, if it worked, we wouldn't have as much to do, right?
Is this the link?
Okay.
It's YouTube.
Over here. So, do you need me to stand a certain place to be visible on the live stream?
I don't think so. That's why I was trying to set this up.
Well, I'll hang around
it's
here.
weird because let's see here. Because I seem to show this. Okay. I think we're live. So, because it shows you walking around.
Okay.
So I think we're good. We have sound. I think we have sound.
Hello.
I think we're live. Yeah. So it shows you walking around.
Okay. That's neat.
So I think we're good. Okay.
You rock. You got that. You put that together within a couple hours. Didn't
Well,
you?
Actually, it was over a couple days because it takes you. It takes 24 hours for them to activate your account. It's not too bad. Eli suggested Facebook Live, but not everybody uses Facebook. I figure YouTube is, more common.
Oh, it's totally the standard.
Hey, looking for NetSquared?
I am.
Come on in.
Hi.
Jen, nice to meet you guys.
Yeah, you came to our last one, right?
Yes.
So I remember the face. So I'm still Linda.
I'm Chris.
Chris, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
We have snacks again. We have cups, ice, water.
Yeah,
I was gonna go get some plates and some napkins. So
yeah, I'm rather early, but
which is perfectly fine. Not a problem.
I was late last time. Averages.
Yeah. Well, nice to meet you.
Yeah, thanks for doing the presentation.
Oh, well, don't thank me yet, Why don't we
Oh,
have
I'm sure it'll be stunning.
Oh, this looks good. Arugula.
So there's like 1 cup of water. Well, I'm taking it like that. Good try first.
Yeah, well.
I have a neighbor who's like an intense chain smoker.
Oh, dear.
And once in a while. Yeah.
Oh, boy. That's
well, it's like the rent is cheap, wonderfully cheap. So.
Yeah.
Oh, Wi-Fi, glorious.
Chain smoker. My goodness. That sounds.
It comes in like through the bathroom.
Yeah. Oh.
So
The worst place. Your towels. Boy.
it's more like I have these moments when I'm like, I need to go, but maybe later.
Oh,
it's only like it fades. Yeah, but not in the bathroom. I mean, it fades quickly. It's just while he's smoking.
Oh.
I don't know if it's a he. I'm just assuming.
Yeah. Boy.
So I have a sore throat.
Oh.
Anyways, it's all good. Enough about that. Let's get my stuff out of the way. I'm trying to remember your bio. Where is it you work again? You're in.
Well, I'm my own firm. We do, I found it in '06, and we, at the end of the day, I've cracked the code on how to build trust with
So
stakeholders.
then I could scrounge some plates, but we got some napkins, some more water. Okay. And I'm gonna do a quick lap to see if there are confused looking people. And
Sure there will be. I did a bit of a loop before I got here, so it'll be like
Well, the
that.
guy over by the front desk doesn't know where it is.
Yeah.
Classic. He's only here for tonight.
Yeah, well, it's startup posting spot. It's all good. So
Yeah.
building trust with stakeholders.
And what I found is that when people trust you, all kinds of business outcomes happen. And so rather than trying to increase donations, which is the typical, left brain kind of way to do things, it's way more effective. I mean, hundreds of percent more effective to focus on building trust. First, you have to figure out what that means to the people you're trying to engage. And so that's part of, you're going to get a taste of that today.
And by, do you mean specifically donors, or you mean more than that? Or?
Any kind of people.
Okay.
So you may want to build trust with the people you're trying to serve. All kinds of possibilities.
Yeah, of
any human being.
Yeah, it's definitely foundation. I mean, I'm doing a bit of political canvassing right now. I've done some like psychiatry research, getting people with schizophrenia to be in my research study. Getting someone who's clinically paranoid to be in your to let you study their brain.
That would be a tough one.
It's easier than you'd think. No. Sorry, multitasking. Yeah. Well, the thing with patients is like it's a bit random. They'll be paranoid when they shouldn't be, and they'll trust when they shouldn't too. And they sort of, and a lot of them just needed money. So the fact that we would pay them like $10 for doing our psychology tests. But I think it's not just that. It's they were often like, most of them were in a psychiatric hospital, so in an institution, having other people radiate their life. And so if we like thanked them for their time, things like that, they weren't used to that. They were like,
that is...
so respect, which is part of the, the trust thing.
Are you a psychiatrist? Or?
Nope. This was just how I paid my rent during my undergrad, actually. I was a psychology major, and I was working as a research assistant.
Okay.
So,
wow, what a tough crowd, though.
Interesting for sure. So yeah, that is sort of the basic thing.
What are you doing now?
I am a postdoc doing neuroscience research until my fellowship runs out, which is a month and a half from now.
Neuroscience
and
research.
I'm waiting on my first ever U.S. passport. And then I'll have a very accelerated job.
Yeah, you're from the UK, maybe?
Canada.
Okay.
So the accent's halfway between. I'm sure I sound a bit, we'll sometimes do that. But my mom's American. So I realized very recently that I have inherited U.S. citizenship. And they went for the 2-week passport application, which didn't turn out being 2 weeks. They needed extra documents, which is not that surprising, Yeah, and I'm doing a lot of volunteering in Chicago, so I kind of like it here. Lots of political work to be done. So I'm hoping to do some nonprofit stuff. I've got grant writing experience with science research, so I'm trying to leverage. I'm like, if I do that and I get a bit of development-related knowledge, and I can definitely crunch numbers, so that helps for analytics.
All right, do you go to Matter?
I've been going to Matter since last summer.
Mm-hmm.
It's great. It's really good, like for the business skills workshop stuff. So, yeah. There's a lot of stuff like this in Chicago.
Do you know of a prof at Notre Dame named Narvaez? She is a longtime pioneer in the triune ethics theory.
What's that?
That's the more formal name for the brain structure in terms of the reptilian or R complex, the limbic system.
Okay, yeah, the old brain, yeah.
And I'm reviewing a short paper of hers, not as an academic at all. I'm a total hacker, but it's fascinating because, to me at least, because I hypothesize, and I've been doing this 11 years, but trust building is nonverbal.
A lot of it is, yeah.
And so
quite a lot of it is, which is, well, I know I can socialize just by social media, but I find this like the political canvassing thing, when you're going door to door or getting out the number. It's a big thing. And so as people keep telling me I should go into sales, I'm like, well, I can sell really well, but only when I believe really deeply, at my core. So I've been doing this like immigrant rights organizing, and people who are giving us their phone numbers so we can contact them and stuff, which is like, like I just got someone's information, but it's because they can read you. They can tell like that you mean well. So,
well, what my firm does is we make that more explicit because most people don't know how they trust or how even if. And what we do is we mentor client teams, because we want to teach them how to do this. We don't want to. We're not the parasite kind of firm that hangs around as long as possible. So anyway, that's kind of what we do. We try to make it way more explicit, and we have to mentoring people. So
the opposite side of the trust thing was getting different kind of trust, getting donations of space from my shopping malls for a study I was doing. That was more just having my documents super organized. So then I knew they would trust me to like make their lives easy and have the paperwork together. Totally different level.
Yeah, that helps.
Hey Linda, where's the water coming from?
The water?
Yeah, I might go get more.
Okay, I'll show you.
Cool.
The women's bathroom is
right here.
Probably is a fountain there, right? Because plumbing is plumbing.
Right, there's this, but I'll show you somewhere else.
Okay.
Because you can get a cup and other things too. And So we were there over the summer. So, you know, it was fine. It's just that Jay's business is really, it takes place at night, you know, and he was growing at times. So it just got to be, when I asked him if we could consistently have a Wednesday night, he's like, I can't really guarantee that because.
So Jay is who runs Actualize?
Yeah, Jay's
Okay.
the CEO owner, Jay Wengrove of Actualize, the coding boot camp I went to.
Right, okay.
So, yeah, we started there. So we had meetups. I took over the meetups, last summer. So I haven't been doing this all that long, but we had one in August, September, October, and November. We didn't have anything in December. And then we came here in January. And our first speaker was Ed Juhanka with the ACLU talking about net neutrality after Agit Pi.
Yeah.
So he was very interesting. It was a great talk. You know, we had people RSVP and then people didn't show up. So, you know, but last time around, you know, I was used to people not, you know, RSVPing and then not showing. So then when U of I said I could use their room, I was like, okay, that's fine, because that'll be fine for the size that we have. But now, you know, I was up to 21 RSVPs. And if I have people, you know, that show up that don't RSVP, so that's why I moved us over here, because it's a bigger room.
Yeah.
I also like it, the size too, because there is a little bit of intimacy too.
Yeah,
You know, that kind of,
it's not
it's a
super
really
huge.
nice, you know, vibe around the table when
Mhm.
people are introducing themselves. And I remember you now. You went based on, you talked about your grant writing and stuff like
Yeah.
that, and about being Canadian. Can't remember if you're from Toronto or Waterloo or.
Neither, no. I didn't really say. I moved here from Vancouver.
Oh,
And
okay.
before that, I lived in like northern Canada. I lived
Oh,
in the stereotype everyone imagines when they think about Canada.
Did you go to NetSquared meetups in Canada and Vancouver? Do you know
No.
why then?
I only learned about Network Square
Hello,
like very
NetSquared.
recently.
hey,
Come on in.
welcome.
Hi, I'm Linda. Nice to meet you.
Jen, nice to meet you.
Jen. Thanks, sir.
Great to see you. Thanks for coming.
Those are the best classes frames.
I'll argue with you on that one, but they get a lot
Did
of
they list
attention.
too many comments?
They just block my side vision.
Oh, yeah, okay.
They look like goggles in a way.
That's what they're for.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's to keep debris out of my eyes.
For biking?
Oh,
Well, I got them with that in mind, was biking, and I needed them when I worked at Divvy. Otherwise, I had to wear another set of glasses on top of my regular glasses, which is like, whoa.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's safety glasses, but they're my prescription. And my other one's broke. So.
that's the thing, man. When you get these these frames, you're talking. I mean, I think these things cost like $700-800 with the lenses and all of that. It's like not a trivial thing.
No,
I don't care how much money I'm making at the time.
No,
It's not
glasses are
trivial.
cheap, especially the lenses.
we have some refreshments if you need anything. Yeah. Some pop, some sweet stuff, water, ice.
So how big is Divvy? I see them all over the place. Is it just Chicago or is it?
Divvy itself is pretty much the city of Chicago. They were in Oak Park, but there wasn't enough usage, and so I think they had them moved.
Okay, yeah.
And so yeah, Divvy itself is. It used to be 95th Street all the way up to what's the border? Is that Tui?
Howard.
Huh?
Howard.
Howard's the border. I live in Rogers Park, so.
Same here.
Do you?
Yeah, I live on Sherwin in the lake.
Sherwin, I'm trying
It's
to
just
remember
one
which
block south of Jarvis.
Okay, got it. Yeah, I'm sort of between Pratt and what do you call it? Greenleaf, one of those.
Greenleaf.
Yeah, because he's
Greenview is the
the one
south.
yeah, orthogonal to it. Yeah, still learning my way around. It's a good neighborhood.
I super corny. I shot this photo of the Greenview and Greenleaf and said, this is a green neighborhood. It's like, really stupid.
And yeah,
It
sort of
just
true.
amused me that there were the two greens, like, and they're so similar in name that it's the pain in the butt to try to remember which is which.
NetSquared?
Hi.
Yeah, come on in.
Hi.
I'm Linda.
Oh, hi. My name is Andrew. Nice to meet you all.
Jen.
Rob.
Chris,
Yeah.
come on
I
in.
already forgot.
As are our Jen
Yes.
We have some
and
freshmen over here. You can help yourself.
Awesome.
And you
Did you say Andy or Ed?
Andrew.
Andrew. Okay. Not too far. Trying to be a good networker. I'm job hunting, so I'm like, must learn everyone's name and everyone's
Oh,
company.
yeah.
And
takes practice.
Yeah,
Not be able to remember names. Takes a lot of practice.
yeah.
Doesn't look like we have any viewers on our live stream. Maybe as
Well,
it gets closer to 7.
that would be, you know, no shows are rife on
I know.
everywhere.
I know. And so it's a fun experiment, right?
Well, it's a great new channel, I guess.
Yep.
You never know what could come of it. And since now you've got it up and running, it's pretty
Yeah.
trivial
Should
to.
be simple enough.
Well, you may have people on the border that might want to truck downtown that they've seen. You know, who knows?
Yeah, I know. So I was actually introduced to this group through Omari.
Yeah,
And
Great.
he like told one of my coworkers about this, and they weren't able to come, but I came instead. But the person who works in social media in our organization actually is in DC right now. So
Well,
this is probably going to be the most effective way to sort of beam her in.
yeah, neat. Yeah. Well, I invited him to come because I met him at Net Impact Chicago a couple weeks ago, the last meeting. Yeah.
Very cool.
So I invited a bunch of people, all nonprofits. So
Do you all work in the nonprofit space?
I aspire to.
Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned you're
Yeah.
on the
I'm
job search.
a postdoc doing research right now, but
Oh, awesome. What?
neuroscience research.
Oh,
With the side, I have diverse interests. I have a side project which became a main project as it grew, looking at how people perceive information about climate change, and linking that to like individual differences. So that was like more of a social psyche kind of study, looking at politics and stuff like that.
Right.
So I've kind of been veering towards the whole save the world thing.
Yeah.
How about you?
I work at a Head Start agency. So my role primarily has to do with data analysis and sort of curricular outcomes, fundraising, donation outcomes, that kind of thing. But
Very cool.
yeah, I'm interested to
So
learn
you know
about
all
social
about the
media.
donor analytics then?
I don't know. We don't really run a super sophisticated shop, but I try to help where I can.
Yeah.
you might like this. You mentioned two things. Two of the cylinders are there. Sustainability and green and mental illness even. So if you follow that, it's called the Chicago Social Empowerment Cohort. It's on at that URL there. So that's my main engagement program for nonprofits this year.
See.
And
To trust.
I know you're not a developer, but there's also Chicago Developers is trying to get people together about building applications for like voting and other. So,
Oh, that's super useful.
let me see what I can find. Chicago Developer Network.
Well, I code,
Okay.
and I,
In partnership with Voter Hub, Chicago Developer Network is bringing together designers and developers who want to build open source tools for the Democratic Party. So,
Another good group for that is City Data Users Group. It's an open
I was
data.
at that last meeting with them, actually.
How'd you
Down at the
like it?
Microsoft building. We might have been in the same room. It was a big crowd.
I wasn't there I haven't been for a few months. Something's always conflicted out of it. But
Everything always happens on a Wednesday. That's the story of my life right now.
Today is Wednesday.
Yep.
Yeah.
I always have something on Wednesday night. Sometimes I have multiple things. Source.
well, that's where the bike comes in handy because sometimes I'll do 3 events in a night, and you just shoot around the loop, you know, as long as they're not obnoxiously located. More and more, it's pretty possible, you know.
Yeah, I was
well, there are a couple events going on here tonight, so if you feel like you need to do something else relevant, I think there's like a live stream with Raw Emanuel going on in the auditorium. And there seems to be some kind of big private event over here.
Yeah. No, I was just in the room with Rahm Emanuel, like, last Thursday at M Hub. They had their anniversary bash.
Okay.
So it was neat. He's a very natural kind of guy, but in the flesh. I don't know what he's like personally, but.
Well, depends on, it seems to depend if you're on his good side or his bad side. He has a reputation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard like nothing passes in City Hall unless Ron is kind of on
He's an enfant terrible or something.
Well,
I don't know.
You know, he's a very imposing presence, and you know, there's a reason that you know he was chief of staff for a while, wasn't he?
Yeah, I think that's what
There's
it
a
was.
reason, you know, because that's like he can be he can be a very controlling guy, you know, and he can be very forceful.
Mm-hmm.
So, and he can, if he feels he has to be,
Mm-hmm.
he can explain to you in very, very, you know, not nice terms why you're an idiot.
Yeah. Oh, you know,
Is that diplomatically put?
I just read a fairly new biography of Richard M. Daley, and Rahm was in there.
NetSquared?
Hi,
I'm
Liddy.
I'm Linda. Nice to meet you.
Hey, Liddy, thanks for coming.
Of course, thanks for having us.
Sure.
Hi, I'm Liddy. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Nice to meet you.
You too.
You're not interrupting. I'm taking a lot of space.
We've got some refreshments over here. You're
Okay.
hungry if you want
Yeah.
something to drink.
Sure, thank you.
Some water. And maybe one more of those cinnamon cookies. Those are really good.
Are they?
Has this been running the whole time?
Yeah,
since
it's
live?
been running.
Okay.
I didn't necessarily want to stop it and restart it because I'm not sure that I want to do that. It told me that I had an error the last time around, but I took out my phone and it seemed to be broadcasting. So I think we're good.
Well, people will let you know in no uncertain
Yeah,
terms
that's
if
true.
it's not working. Usually,
Yeah.
you have these anxious texts or something.
Well, there seem to also be other tools with YouTube Live. So if I ever really figure out what I'm doing, I seem to be able to like chat with people in real
Mhm.
time and other things too.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely something to those apps for politics. I was out canvassing the other weekend for like for the primaries. We had to sing on our cell phones, and it's like it tells you exactly which houses you're going to, like where the Democrats are, right? And then it linked you to the form for like whether they were like completely supportive or partially supportive or hesitant, like separate for each candidate. So all the data entry is just done as you're out there canvassing. It's like we didn't have a clipboard paper, but we didn't need it. You just need an extra phone battery.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah, the GPS kind of gets you. Well, it's just a lot more efficient. So.
Well, that's one of the case studies I used to use when I was speaking a lot in social networking back, in 2010. The Obama iPhone app was really revolutionary because what it would do was it would look in your directory to tell you what people you knew that were on their hit list. So it'd make it super easy for you to contact them. So imagine you live in a certain zip code. It looks up for people in here and it prioritizes based on the swing element of that neighborhood. So just imagine, and this was like 2008, right? When he was using this.
Well, I'm not sure I want to bring up my politics with my problems in my contacts,
Wow.
implications down the road.
Yeah.
Pretty invasive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's,
It's engineered somehow. Yeah.
well, Harper, I know Harper from way back then. He was their CTO,
Is this a different Harvard meeting?
Harper Reed.
Okay.
This is way back. This is 10 years ago now, for God's sake. Isn't that amazing? 2008 is 10 years ago.
Yeah, it's crazy. So are all of you from Chicago?
No, 10
I've
years
been
ago,
here.
I was in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Okay.
I was in Vancouver, Canada 2 years ago. So
Okay. Vancouver's on my bucket list of places to go to.
It's awesome.
You got it.
Same
Yeah,
here.
I keep
beautiful.
hearing
Nice.
about it. Yeah.
In June
One
or
day.
July.
Yeah, don't go in winter. You'll just be raining clouds.
Great.
But in the summer, it's really nice.
Okay.
Yeah, mountains and ocean. And, it's all liberal.
Yeah.
Just really expensive to live.
Oh, really? Oh, actually, someone was just telling me that the other day.
Yeah, it's like the third least affordable in the world or something at this
Wow.
point.
So
Really?
So
Yeah.
many-
Yeah.
So it's like Sydney, Australia, Hong Kong, and Vancouver are like the three worst right now.
And you hear about Seattle.
It might change.
Like,
It changes year by year. Yeah, and San
Seattle.
Francisco's pretty high, and London's pretty high.
Well, Tokyo used to be the champion.
Yeah. I mean, it depends how you calculate it too. If it's based like how much you're putting at price of rent versus house prices, and like whether you're basing on median income in the city or the suburbs, or
Mm.
it's a bit of a.
Well, health
Yeah,
prices
so I came to
would give
Chicago
us
and I'm
an
always going on about how cheap it is, and people always give me a
Yeah.
funny look. I'm like, no, you don't know.
Go get it.
Yeah, it's awesome here.
You came to Chicago.
I came to do research at Northwestern on a fellowship. Actually, my fellowship is through Vancouver, so technically I'm employed by a University of Vancouver, and I just have way more freedom than I should get away with having.
Yeah,
that's
really good. I got
Yeah. And I kind of want to stick around. I've been involved in like a lot of activism. I kind of like my neighborhood, my community there.
good choice.
And just figure out what's next.
It's so
Hey,
late.
great
It's
to
just
see
starting to
ya.
find the place.
Welcome.
Thank you.
You're not late. Hello. I'm Jen.
I think we met briefly.
You look
I don't know.
familiar.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Nidhi.
Hi,
Nice to
Omari.
meet you.
Hi.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rob.
Omari.
Hi, Frida. Hi.
Oh, and then I
thought we
Very briefly. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Have a seat anywhere you'd like. We have some refreshments over here.
How's it going?
Good, how are you?
Big
All right.
ears.
Yes, I think you have my LinkedIn now.
Yes. And I found the room.
Yeah, I did a scenic tour before I got
Yeah.
here. It was all good.
Yeah.
All right, I think I'm gonna do a lap, see if I find confused looking people.
I wandered around here for quite a while.
I went onto the 18th floor at first because
Yeah.
I said downstairs, I'm trying to go to the Motorola room, and they
I
just
was
heard
wondering.
Motorola.
no.
So I went to 18, and then I'm like, well, maybe let me try 12 just in case.
Yeah, I was like,
Yeah, I just saw Rob Emanuel. Did you guys see him? As I was coming in, he was like leaving. I was like, I like a double take. I'm like, I think that was him. Yes. He had his like bodyguards all around him.
oh god, yeah. How did it?
Pretty good.
You know the 18th floor too, or just?
I went to the 6th floor. Or it was in the elevator. that
Welcome.
went to the 6th floor.
Tried following the instructions,
That
but I
happens.
only got part of the way here. Can I sit here? Thank you. Fantastic. We have enough people. I've got a little game for us to play to start with.
Oh, we have a trust exercise.
You need a certain number of people. So now we have both, so I'm happy for that. Once Linda gets back, well, I think we're supposed to start at 7, the talk. So we're about, yeah, we're in good shape.
Networking. Introducing.
We've got enough people to play the game now.
Well, that's good. Since you
But-
figured
The
out.
game
Can
is,
people
I
join
guess what the
partway
game
through
is.
the game, or do we need to
Oh,
wait?
we'll get to that, you know, this is only my second time here, so I'm waiting for Linda to kind of like.
Well, I told people the presentation would start at 7. You have 6 minutes, so.
Do we introduce each other or ourselves, or I can't remember if that's part of it.
It's been very informal, and to be honest, like we were at Actualize and other places, like for the most part, I've been running around trying to get people into the building or into the room. So there hasn't really been any kind of formal structure, but I can introduce you if you like.
Oh, no, I mean, I'm happy to introduce myself, but I just like to know
Yeah,
a
we're,
few people I
we're
don't know.
halfway introduced.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll go around.
Yeah.
And I'll start. I'm Linda Stetler. I'm the Meetup organizer. So, and so that's why I'm running in and out. And in case anybody didn't hear, we have food and drink up here. So if you're hungry or thirsty, help yourself. And if you have any questions, let me know. And if you don't know about our parent or our main sponsor, TechSoup, if you're in the nonprofit world, TechSoup, if you're a 501c3 nonprofit or library, offers really great discounts on all kinds of tech and software, you know, pretty much anything your nonprofit would need in tech-wise. So if you don't know about it, be sure to check out TechSoup.org, that website, and you know,
I'm
Get started
missing
there.
the second part. Tech what?
TechSoup,
Soup? Right.
TechSoup.
Oh, it is? Okay. I thought you were saying sweet or soup or
Sorry.
something. Tech soup. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Thank you.
Kind of like split pea.
Right. It's- okay. Thank you. Soup.org.
I want to record one.
Well, I'll go next. I'm Chris. I'm the speaker, and I have a boutique consulting firm. We do something I've made up in the last 11 years called experiential social media. And basically what we do is we interact in digital public in ways that increase trust between our client and the people that they care most about. So in nonprofits, depending on how they're funded, et cetera, they usually want more donations. And when I say donations, I don't mean the whole foundation kind of like white glove fundraising. I'm talking about online kind of stuff, which is growing at a lot of nonprofits. So interacting in certain ways increases those donations and volunteer signups and other good things. But the thing is, you can't talk about it. So today you're going to learn some of the basics on how to do it. So that's me.
I'm Stacy Davidson. I'm with Midwest Women's Network. It's a nonprofit focusing on allowing women to network and have a greater voice in the media and just in the world overall.
I'm Jennifer Benson. I'm the founder of Midwest Women Network. We're a new startup. She's on my board, so I thought she'd be a good person to bring along. So we just started in November, so I'm looking for all the help I can get. So I thought this would be a good seminar for me.
I'm another Jennifer Whitman, and I'm looking to get into some nonprofit fundraising work. So right now I'm a postdoc researcher. So kind of doing the career transition.
Omari Janaki. I volunteer with a number of nonprofits, and I'm on the board of one that does a number of programs in Uganda. So I sent this to those nonprofits, and I'm sort of collecting any tidbits that I think would be helpful for them. I don't work at a nonprofit, but I have, and I've worked on behalf of a lot of nonprofits.
My name is Robert Grossman. I work for myself as a consultant, also volunteer at Working Bikes when I can. And I've been on the board of a nonprofit for about 8 years. Helped start 2 nonprofits in Baltimore and one in Cincinnati. And person invited me, so I came to check it out.
Hi, my name is Nidhi Chaudhary, and I work at CCS Fundraising. It's an advising firm that works with larger nonprofits generally on things such as development, as well as a little bit more generally on like the transforming nonprofits in order to get them to the mission that they have, visualized for themselves. And this is actually my first week with the firm. I was previously at Ernst & Young, so I'm doing something a little bit different. I was doing employee benefits and exec comp over
Yay! Congratulations.
there. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Andrew Hom. I work at the Carol Robertson Center for Learning. We're an early childhood education family development nonprofit on the west side of Chicago. I work my role is more geared towards data analysis, looking at programmatic outcomes, but also fundraising development work. So Omari actually had sent an invite to this event to one of my coworkers who passed it on to me. So that's why I'm here.
Right.
I'm Joe Cortez. I've done some nonprofit work since I've done a lot of tutoring in the inner city. I was also a caseworker, and I consider that nonprofit. And what I'm working on now, and I've been working on, I'm retired right now. I'm an educator, and still doing pretty much the same thing. I work in a suburban school, basically as a consultant more than anything else. And I'm developing a line of game formats for online, but also offline, for students to learn their subjects at the high school level. Been working at that level for a very long time, and I want to put it together into a game format. I started out independent educational format, and I got every game company in the country, major game company, spying on me, and they have more spies than the CIA and the KGB put together and all the other countries put together. And that was a result of being involved with friends of mine who did work for those major game companies. So I'm gonna get out there and do it as registered as a nonprofit company.
Want me to get started?
Yeah, why not?
All right, well, now, this is the marketing toys game. It's not been played before. This is brand new,
That better not be one of mine.
just out of development. Well, I know you'll tell me if I've infringed on your copyrights.
There's no way.
Now, I've got 7 marketing toys in here. And the rules are, when you hear one that you want, you get this toy, and you get to tell everyone here what it is and why you like it. Okay? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The first is interstitial. Okay, thank you. All right, then we have content marketing.
I'll take content marketing.
Okay, thank you. Let's see what else we have in here. Marketing automation. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, please don't unwrap them.
No, I
There's
won't.
nothing inside.
I already know what's in here.
Next, email marketing.
Oh, that's nice.
Okay, let's see. Pop-up. Anybody? Going once, going twice?
I'll take pop-up.
Okay. Retargeting. Thank you. And last but definitely not least, behavioral economics. All right, so who wants to go first and tell us what their toy is and why they like it?
So we can open them now, or?
No, don't open them. There's nothing inside.
So, why do I like content marketing?
Yeah.
That's a good question. I'm not entirely sure what content marketing is. So,
Okay. Anybody want to help her out?
There's different views on it, but one of them is where you're providing content, you're writing about what it is you do or offer, or you're doing a podcast, or you're doing a video, and you do this regularly, and you're linking all around back and forth and building a nexus. This puts you through, sort of helps to generate business as well as reputation online.
okay. So kind of like DIY videos, or a blog, or. Okay.
Yeah, it has a marketing strategy. The content is not, it's very purposeful and focused on, it's related to your differentiation of your organization, so it's very purposeful.
Okay.
Even if it might seem to be kind of, just because you like doing it, but it's not. It's very focused on the marketing sense. Okay, thanks. Who wants to go next?
I have interstitial, and
Yeah.
I also don't know what that was.
Oh, I can tell you what it is, and thank you for taking the plunge anyway. When you're just down the first paragraph and you're really getting into an article, and this obnoxious interstitial comes across the screen and won't let you read anymore? That's interstitial. And it's different from a pop-up because it comes in between you can think of it kind of like a pop-up, but it's actually a different technology. It's more insidious.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
Is
the
the
same
one thing my ad
concept as
blocker doesn't
interruptive
read.
advertising. Okay.
Well, I
Anybody?
hate you because I don't like those at all.
You can tell she doesn't even know
Well,
what.
laptop's okay, but on my phone, if it's too big and I can't scroll past it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, nasty. Okay. Who's next?
There you go. I had email marketing, and basically it's an approach, a marketing approach that a lot of organizations, companies, retailers take to get their message and whatever they're selling across to the consumer or the potential client in the most like efficient and effective way if used correctly. And I like email marketing sometimes when it's visually appealing, and often when it includes like short clips, like video clips or something interesting that captures my attention. But otherwise it can be very annoying.
Thank you. Who's next? Who hasn't gone?
Who's got a hand over here?
Behavioral economics. Wow. What do I like about behavioral economics? I find it's interesting that there is so much study about how people behave and how, so you can leverage that for, when you release your emails, there's a higher chance of it being read at a certain time on a certain day than other days. And so this is all part of behavioral economics, I suppose. And that's interesting where people are even just studying that. I mean, it's kind of like email marketing where it gets abused or but at the same time, there's something fascinating about it.
Nudging. It's known as that. Nudging. Thank you. Who's next? Joe?
Okay, marketing automation. Now, I'm interpreting this in two different ways. The first way I'm interpreting it, it's marketing, you're automating methods of marketing. And one of the examples I can think of, if that's what it's called, drives me insane to the point of insanity. I use Google searches a lot. And every time I search for something, the computer automatically knows my profile. It's got every word I've ever said in my life in there. And then it'll start sending me ads, okay, based on what I looked for. It could be just immediately, could be the next day, could be a week or a month later. So that's one way I'm interpreting it.
Okay.
The other way of interpreting it is, it might be interesting. You're marketing methods of automation to companies. I mean, some of these companies are companies like Walmart, for example, is competing with other companies to get the automation process and deliver things to your door by whatever it is, flying cars or whatever it is that they do. My nephew, for example, got into the robotics, and he's helping companies market their ways, their methods, and that's for them to be able to mass produce items 100 times faster than humans could on an assembly line. And there's such a huge demand for that. In any given month, he's in a different country, throughout the year, and he's just has more work than he can handle. He's hiring people as fast as he can. I can't work for it because I know nothing about engineering. But what does it mean?
Well, this refers to large cloud-based platforms like Marketo, HubSpot is moving into that space. Basically what they do is based on your behavior on their website or in response to email marketing, they automatically, they have a journey that's baked in, and they automatically classify you in terms of what part of the sales funnel you're in. And if they determine based on your behavior that you're really not ripe to the buying, they're not going to try to convince you to buy, but they're going to like send you white papers and other things to educate you to try to move you along the funnel.
White paper? What's a white paper?
White paper, it's just some kind of, I mean, some of them are fairly decent and factual. Others are just blatant sales pitches, but they're short papers that talk about how to use email marketing to convert more. That's a typical, I'm sure you've all got millions of those. I know I do. But it's basically information that is really content marketing in the sense, because it's really about marketing and trying to move you along the funnel, but it's informational. So marketing automation is that whole platform, and
You're sending people ads based on what their interests are?
oh,
online?
and how they interact with you, whatever information they know about you. So not Google, but this would be like a company
Okay.
or a nonprofit. I'm sure large nonprofits use marketing automation. But so that's that one. Does that make sense to everybody? You're all experiencing marketing automation big time. So now you know. It wasn't gone.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So I think what retargeting would refer to when you realize that your product you're trying to sell, or if any nonprofit soliciting donations, would be a better fit for a different group of customers, and so you change who you're targeting your advertising materials to. And that could be based on a change in how your customer segmentation, how you're grouping them with different analytics. Correct me if I'm getting that wrong.
It's kind of along those lines, but Joe, in his first example, described it perfectly. It's based on cookies that it places on your browser. Like, let's say.
So strictly cookie data, not all the other data you've got that you can analytics.
It's mostly cookie data, but basically, I have a crazy life because I do research on all kinds of clients, like plastic surgery clients, like education or computers or this or that. So it thinks that I am interested in all those things. So it serves me advertising after the fact. That's why it's retargeting. So a week later, it may send you a bunch of stuff. If you've been looking for whatever, like last week, it'll retarget you.
Okay, so updating your profile.
And serving you advertising
Of course.
based on
Yeah.
that. Yeah, so that's that one. Pop-up?
I don't mind pop-ups. I think they can convey information quickly, and if it's not pertinent to you, they're easy to close.
Okay, great, thank you. Is everybody gone? Okay, now a very important part of the game. I'd like you to throw that away.
Ooh.
Oh, thank you.
Certain satisfaction.
You need a recycling bin.
Yeah, it's
I didn't see one.
environmentally friendly.
Did we just close the ad?
I wish. See, I'd be retired by now.
The
if I
pop-up's
was
gonna
able
jump
to
out
do
at
that. Okay, so thank you for playing the marketing toys game. I think it'll make sense to you in a few minutes why we did this. Here's the thing. I'm going to draw a contrast between marketing and caring. Okay, that may be surprising, but I think it'll make sense to you. We all know this. We're just, I think the typical figure is 3,000 something times a day we are pitched. via some advertisement or some pop-up or some whatever. And you've also probably noticed that overall, it's a general statement, but the world is in a trust crisis right now. People don't trust organizations. They don't trust other people. People tend to you're guilty until proven innocent type thing. This is the zeitgeist right now, at least how I look at it. And I think these things are connected. Because basically, and some of you may think this is quite harsh, as a practitioner of marketing since the 80s, I basically, most of the marketing I see is lying. Exaggeration is lying. And again, you can disagree with that and you can have a good argument there. But basically, when it comes to trust and building strong relationship, exaggeration or any of these other euphemisms that we have for lying are very counterproductive to developing trust and relationship. Because, how many times you go into your bank and they say, "I'm so glad to see you, Mr. Robertson." And you can tell they read it off of some screen and they don't even know me, but that's a lie. They're pretending to be familiar with me and to know me. Or how many times I get Christopher. I'm never called Christopher unless I'm in trouble. Okay? Yeah, I think you get the point. So, so basically, this is the situation that we're in whenever we're trying to be in a relationship with another person or group of people that we've had multiple generations of being lied to or exaggerated or however you prefer to think of it. But basically, if you're not telling the real truth, I'm arguing here that it's lying. And so that is an opportunity for all of us. Okay. Now here's the thing. You've probably all run across supply and demand. Content has its own supply and demand curves. And content, some of these technologies and these toys that we played with just a minute ago, they make it super cheap to send content. Okay? It's like one of those things like the minute you build a sausage making plant, it's super cheap to make sausages. When you were doing them by hand, it was really costly. And everybody is going on that bandwagon. So what you have is more and more supply. The web and web technologies, digitization, instead of I'm old enough to remember the licking envelopes and putting them in the post, that is real work. Here though, you do the mail merge and then you hit send and it automatically goes to your mailing list, right? This is whenever the cost of something goes way down, people do it more. And this is part of what has grown the supply of content. And content, I want to be specific here. It is something that is not made to communicate with you. It is fabricated, and some of these technologies try to point it to make it more specific to you, but it's not that they don't know you. They're making this content and then like a production line, they're targeting people with it. Okay. So the other thing, and I have no proof of this, this is my own impression, my own opinion, but I think that when something is talked about ad nauseum, it gets trivialized. And when, because the context of meaning is with individuals. We all decide on the meaning of something individually. And when marketers or politicians or any other organization try to take meaning and scale it to the masses via some of these technologies, it trivializes it. Okay. Well, and what do the marketers say? Typically, more content to break through. And see, this is like giving a junkie more heroin to try to get the same high. It's a bloody ocean. It's really hard to compete because it's super cheap for everybody to send more content, and technologies grease the skids even more over time. If you can afford the latest ones, it's cheaper for you to send more content. Okay, this makes sense. So this is actually increasing the supply of content. On the other hand, the demand for content is dropping relatively because information is available on demand. I don't know if any of you share my experience, but I spend a lot of my time on email. I'm unsubscribing from things. So my demand, because I'm pretty good at Google searches, if I want to know something, I don't need to have a thread open to this vendor, this organization who's like spamming me, all the time. I just shut them down because I know where they are, or I'll just do an advanced Google search to find them when I need. And more people are taking that approach. So what you have here is a widening gap between supply and demand for content. Okay. So, on the other hand, caring. The thing about this is we get thousands of ads or impressions of some kind per day, but many people go through weeks without a kind word from anybody. When I say kind word, I don't mean, oh, nice to see you today. That's kind of automatic and probably very well intended, but it's not somebody looking at you, noticing something about your individual situation and responding to you. Does that make sense? So what I'm talking about is somebody really like paying attention to you because, yeah, I'm sure we all tell other people we care about them. That is not nearly as powerful as actually doing it. Like somebody said, you say, hey, how are you doing today? And somebody says, oh, there was one this afternoon. There was a lady in Starbucks. She came in and the guy was just leaving and he noticed she wanted to use the outlet next to the wall, and the lady, he left and she didn't go. And so I was going to go in there and I asked her, I said, are you going to take this? And she was like, and I knew that meant yes, but I'm afraid to say so because I don't want conflict. And so I said, here, take it. But this is an example of being present and paying attention, not necessarily to what someone says, but how they're acting. Does that make sense? So that's caring. And I'm here to tell you, after 11 years of ethnographic research of social media, the demand for caring is growing. It's huge and growing. People, and people just love being cared for and being considered. This may sound really like, yeah, who cares? But the thing is, there are a lot of people, and ask yourself, as defined right here, how far back do you have to go to remember the last time someone really paid attention to you, not what you said, but how you were really feeling, and actually tried to engage you at that level? That's a way of showing caring. And I know from doing ethnographic research, there are a lot of people who have a big, huge caring gap in their lives. The supply of caring is very small.
But how do you show that with an ad?
Sorry?
How do you show caring? It says thousands of experts may not have kind word in days.
You're not advertising. That's not this. Advertising is, I mean, ask me again at the end, but advertising is in general, it's not caring because it's not individually,
Right.
it's mechanized, it's fabricated and distributed. So it's not caring at all. It's trying to get you to do something. So that's in a totally different, okay? So this, I made up experiential social media to make it very efficient to care for people online and digital public. And by caring for people, my teams get tremendous marketing results, but we never market. We don't talk about our client, and we don't talk about their services or their products. People online, networked, are so smart. They know exactly where to find us when they need to buy us or support us or what have you, okay? And so that's the opportunity, and I'm gonna show you guys how to start doing this if it's interesting to you, okay? So this is another, you know, the whole, you know, mostly social media is practiced as what I call social media marketing. It's used as a content channel, and teams don't really like interacting with people because it's not as efficient as distributing content. And there's this, it used to be true back when Aunt Harriet and Uncle George lived out on the prairie and information was scarce. Marketing added serious value because there was an information shortage. But now it's completely
Overload.
So all of these, and I'll bet any of you who are doing social media probably feel like this because there are all these platforms and, oh, you know, the millennials, oh, we got to be on Snapchat, but what in the hell, you know, and all of this. And, you know, all of these things, I've seen so many organizations, YouTube channels, they're horrible. They're not, or, you know, well, it's like, why? And, you know, there's no plus. Even the brands that for whom these best practices were evolved don't get any profit from social media at large on the whole. There's very few case studies of sustainable profit driven by social media because it's content marketing, okay? It's one of the brightest stars. It and email marketing are the two best returns, but I don't know about email marketing, but social media, there are only a few hundred case studies after how many years that shows real profit consistently from social media. Because so that is, and so there's the knee-jerk reaction to that is you got to do more. You've got to do it consistently. And, you know, nonprofits especially just don't have the bodies or the budget to hire people to do it. So there's a different way. And that's what we're going to get into right now. So the thing is, and this makes total sense, I having been a marketer, I saw social media as the potential for the way I interpreted marketing is building relationship. And so I've been in this since the beginning, and I've seen how it's become less and less about interacting with people and more about content marketing and storytelling. That's the favorite now. But marketers in general bake in commercial type i.e. for-profit type concepts, principles, ethos, okay? The number one capitalistic thing, oh, it's all about the shareholders, so we have to do what we can to, you know, and if you're not a public company, it's kind of like the same. So a lot of, you know, when you see best practices and stuff for social media, without realizing it, many nonprofits are taking on some of these commercial ethos and that are baked into these best practices. And I'm going to argue in a minute that that is that really sabotages nonprofits, what I call an ethical premium. Best practices focus on brand and content, not people. Okay. So, because brand and content, you know, if you're like, have you grown up in the marketing field? It's all about number of impressions, and you know that if you are paid on that, oh, we delivered this many impressions to this type of persona, or you know whatever, you're going to get a bonus. So. It's terrifically, it looks to be very efficient. But marketers, I'm a member of several CMO groups, they struggle to prove ROI for those things. So, but they're paid on those things because nobody knows that there's other things you can do. And the thing is, anybody here see Tin Man? It's a long, old movie. Richard Dreyfuss. Anyway, it's about a salesman. I mean, pushy salespeople really usually make people stand back and get away from me, kind of thing. Because if somebody is really trying to convince you, oh, I know, Rob, I know you need this product. Well, why? Huh? They don't know jack. They're just saying that. This is another example of a lie. Do you know, I've never owned a car. How many insurance propositions I get? For God's sake, people. I mean, this is like, and they're like, I know our insurance is the best. You know, people don't even realize that this is a blatant lie. The way I interpret it is a blatant lie. Because I don't even have a car, never have. Anyway.
My mother never had a car, never even had a driver's license. She died 10 years ago. And to this day, she's getting asked for insurance based on her terrific driving record. Of course, it's beautiful record. Never had an accident in her life.
I love it. Thank you for that. So opportunities and pitfalls. Ethical premium. So if, you know, I'm saying that when people trust you, they feel closer to you, and they prefer you at a certain, you know, what they remember you. That's one thing that happens. Because let's say, put yourself in the place of somebody who has given some funds to different nonprofits, and you get on some lists, and so you get propositioned all the time to give to them, right? Yeah.
It's the worst.
Well, but that's what happens because of some of these marketing toys that we played with. And the thing is that if you accept this thing that the foundation of sustainable giving is trust, that, you know, United Way had a big problem several years ago where their administrative costs were like 25% of their whole thing. And there was this big backlash. Some people absconded with money and stuff. This is several years ago now. My point is that in nonprofits, if I trust that it's not only the money going to the beneficiary, but are you efficient with that? You could have zero administrative cost and give 100% to the beneficiary. But if it's not an effective program, you're not really getting the impact that your donors are ostensibly want, right? So there is, however, compared to a commercial brand, nonprofits have an ethical premium because they're mission driven. And people, I've learned in my own work that one way to inspire people is to serve them and care for them without wanting anything from them. So, and nonprofits, I mean, compare like Pause to Jewel. You know, and if you get an email from Jewel versus an email from Pause, because its primary reason for being is saving I think it's dogs and cats for them, right? See, that's where they have this ethical premium with most people. Where Jewel, everyone knows, it's just trying to make money. It's trying to, like, survive. It's barely survived. I think it got bought by some Safeway or something. Anyway, my point is that, however, nonprofits have this ethical premium, but if they act like commercial companies and use some of these marketing toys and ways, they're actually sabotaging their innate ethical premium. Okay. An opportunity. In social media, in social networks, what actually happens where you get the leverage of the network effect is when you inspire someone to share something about some interaction that you've had or some content, okay? And this is it's kind of like you unlock it based on how you're surprising and inspiring somebody, okay? And this is something that I've learned, and this is why our approach is, I frankly have been surprised at how big of an impact it is, because when you care for people without asking for anything, that's inspiring to most people because it's very rare. So the whole point is that you unlock the access to people's networks by inspiring them. However you can do that. So another opportunity here is that, and again, it varies with the type of nonprofit, but for more and more, especially I would hazard to say small nonprofits, a growing portion of their donor base is online. The buy button, the donate button, the volunteer button. It's more and more increasing portion of the total comes from that. So in nonprofits that you're affiliated with, if that's the case, in some ways, they're a little bit like e-commerce firms in the sense that not in terms of ethos, but in terms of mechanism, how they're funded. And so there's a big opportunity there to make a difference in getting this right, the social media and digital marketing right. Okay. Pitfall: getting blinded by your mission or assuming that your mission is so pure that people owe you to pay attention to you. And I've seen this quite a bit. So that is really, yes, many missions are have the highest aspirations and so forth, but assuming that it gives you a carte blanche to stop people on the street or to really get angry if they don't have time to stop and talk to you or whatever digital version of that, it's counterproductive to teens because it makes it harder to engage people if you have that attitude, because they smell you a mile away. They smell you in digital public too. When you have an attitude underneath that is really about them, then because humans in general, we hate liars and cheats. It's not all humans, it's primates in general. Okay, so anyway, another pitfall, using promotion-oriented social media metrics. That one is number of likes, or I can't remember who said this, but what you measure is what you can manage. But also the opposite is true. A lot of times, oh, we have this great metric, it must be important, because it goes up and down. It has these pretty graphs and stuff like that. But a lot of people don't stop and ask themselves, hey, how important is this? How much is it really? Can we really tie it to something meaningful other than the dashboard and looking pretty? Okay. So, okay. Now getting into the nitty gritty. Stakeholders. Stakeholders are members, donors, volunteers, and some nonprofits have members, whoever their services or their mission is trying to improve the lot of. I call beneficiaries because it's very contextual. Partners, other organizations, maybe government or other nonprofits that serve the same people in adjacent spaces. These are what I call stakeholders, okay? I found that if you know how to look and you're going to learn the start of this today, how they're talking about giving and volunteering and why and in digital public right now. So let's say you have a nonprofit that benefits or tries to change childhood obesity. Okay, so what do donors, what people who give to organizations that try to ameliorate this a little bit, what are they thinking? Okay, so they are talking in digital public about not only giving, but why they do that and what they're trying to accomplish. Does that make sense? So, so you don't, and the thing is, if you send out a survey, which is what most organizations do, you're biasing the results like right off the bat. But when they're talking to each other in digital public, the information has way more social and tacit information than you can get from an explicit instrument like a survey or a focus group, because there's all this social stuff going on. And so all the stuff that the tacit stuff is, tacit is, if you're not familiar with it, it's a kind of learning that you're unconscious of, but you just kind of learn by osmosis when you're in the situation. Okay, tacit knowledge is very difficult to teach because people are not aware of it, but it's kind of like the air we're breathing in this room. So that comes out when you have these many-to-many interactions in digital public. Okay, ethnographic research, you can count those. So how many people with dogs and cats, I don't know what it was, or let's go back to the, I'll stay on the childhood obesity. How many people really don't care that much about childhood obesity, but they're really focused on type 2 diabetes. And that has a correlation there, okay? So you can count those by doing what we're gonna learn. So out of the whole childhood obesity, we can segment it by the number of people having a conversation. And it's really it's back of the envelope. It's fast and cheap relative to doing market research in a more traditional way. Okay. So just these are I call them stakeholder studies. Basically, MVP. Anybody familiar with that term? Minimum viable product. It's like you're doing a back of the envelope. You're doing it just good enough to get the job done, but you're not like really boiling the ocean. Because most people hate persona studies unless they're like Ogilvy or something on, you know, 6-figure engagements, because they're just like sitting around and they're not real data. These are, you define the stakeholder just well enough to where you make each stakeholder distinct from the others in their definition. And then you have someone that is pretty adroit with SEO or playing with keywords, because you're going to represent each stakeholder with a keyword combination. Okay, so let's go for the childhood obesity. Let's say it's a parent, and let's say type 2 diabetes. Okay, that would be a stakeholder. And we could construct a family of keywords that we could put into Google Advanced Search and play with and identify discretely that stakeholder. Does that make sense so far? And so that you define them, and you don't have to sit around and contemplate your navel around the conference room and stuff too much. Just good enough so you can start with the keywords, because you're going to discover that based on real data and real searches, you're going to discover how to tweak those over time. Because you might, you know, I recommend aiming for 2 to 5 to start with, to start this whole process. And you're iterating and testing based on real data. And unlike market research data, these are live conversations that you can enter at any time. So let's say you want to engage or start interacting with parents of type 2 diabetic kids. Your research data is actually enables you to start interacting with them. Okay? So that's the stakeholder studies. Are you guys having any questions about that?
Okay, so when you're talking about the bare minimum, kind of still doing a persona, just not a deep persona.
Right.
And that's a representation of a particular type of stakeholder that is the key focus at the moment for picking your keywords out. Now, is that kind of like developing a value proposition for that persona, for that stakeholder, where you're getting your key points as to, is that what you're kind of meaning by this? Or is this building? Are we going to
well, we're not, the point is not to deliver anything to them. The point is to learn enough about them to develop empathy with them so that you can care for them in public. Okay, we'll get to that in a minute. Okay, but it's that's the difference between the we're not delivering content to I mean, you could do that if you wanted to, but I would not recommend that, because that goes against the whole thing. So even more interesting is outcomes, because stakeholders have outcomes. An example, I did some work some years ago for Lions Clubs International. And they were interested in understanding members. They had members. I don't know if you're all familiar with Rotary or Lions, or, you know, but people pay to be a member. And then they also do volunteer projects in their local communities. And one of the things we found is that kind of surprised them, is that a huge portion of conversations about why volunteer as recent divorcees. You want to meet people? Well, go on volunteer projects with the Lions Club. You can maybe meet Mr. or Ms. Wright over there, because you both care about something, and it's fun and stuff like that. So they didn't know this. I mean, it wasn't a totally foreign idea, but they didn't realize the huge portion of the mind share that concept had. So this is what I mean about an outcome. See, the Lions Clubs wanted to believe, people want to be a member because they believe in our mission. Yeah, that was true. But a lot of times there was another outcome that was actually more personal, and that it also got satisfied, okay? And so when you know that, then you can relate to that person at a deeper, more personal level. Is this making sense?
How did you get to that realization about the divorcees?
Because we were, I'd gone through this process and a more complicated one, but I had started doing ethnographic research in social media, so I count the numbers of topics that are in each discussion, and I tag them all.
Okay, so you're like kind of perusing like what's out there,
exactly,
in terms of, like written content, like not directly interact. Okay, got it.
Right.
So that's
exactly.
like what they're chit-chatting about.
Exactly.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. So so basically, the outcome is really a way for you to interact with someone at a more personal level. And this is in digital public, so it's not creepy or something like that, because it's all in the open. It's just that you're able to develop empathy with those stakeholders at a deeper level. And one of the things that we do when we mentor people is how to do that without being creepy. Okay, so so basically, what you do with your stakeholders, once you have those, is you start looking for their outcomes. Okay, and when your intent is to look at their outcomes, and you're going to find patterns, and you're going to be able to match them up with stakeholders. That's what the process. That's why we do stakeholders first, and then the outcomes. And I encourage you to start with a blank slate. Don't pretend that you know what their outcomes are. Oh, well, we've had donors from, type 2 diabetes for years. We know everything about those people. I would very much warn you not to take that attitude. Just sure, you know what you know, but if you do that, you're biasing yourself against being open to discovering what is out there. Okay?
Okay, so let me see if I'm following. So you've gotten your persona, and then from the persona, you've picked out some keywords that kind of correlate to that. And then you're following these keywords to see where they take you, or along the lines of what relates back to these particular shareholders. Is that kind of?
You study what and I've got some hacks that I'm going to share with you to accelerate that process. But when you do the stakeholder keyword families, you're really gonna, when you iterate them, they're like time-lapse photography. It gets more and more into focus with each iteration, because you're going to be swapping in and out keyword combinations. So you're going to be screening out a lot of people. Okay, so this is the thing that may be hard to imagine if you haven't seen, and I'm going to show you some examples here in a second. If you haven't seen these specific conversations, you can learn a tremendous amount about that stakeholder and that outcome. Because what you'll do, once you get these stakeholder studies good enough so they start to be quite distinct from each other, and you can kind of like get a real feel for it, then you're going to start picking out from them outcome keywords. And you're going to develop a separate basket of those, so you can have an outcome and it might match to several stakeholders. They're independent variables. Okay, yeah.
Okay, now when you said you're aiming for 2 to 5 next, is it 2 to 5 keyword families?
Stakeholders and keyword families, because each stakeholder has its own keyword family.
Okay, so 2 to 5 individuals.
2 to 5 stakeholders. So imagine types of people.
Right.
Okay, each one has a keyword family that identifies it discretely from everybody else. So when you search for that keyword family, you're going to get those stakeholders in conversation in digital public. Okay.
So like in the Lions Club, like one family of keywords would be topics about recent divorces or recent divorces. Like that would be a family. Okay.
Yeah. And
Which would
volunteer and volunteering.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was 2 to 5 keywords.
No.
Each
See, I'm
family
glad
has
you asked that
multiple.
question.
I'm
No,
glad too.
it could be way more than
No,
that.
okay.
Could
Just
be
that it
way.
makes up like a composite.
Exactly.
Those keyword. Okay, that
You
makes
got
sense.
it. Yeah. So, so then you're iterating the outcome, similar process. And now, once you've got 2 to 5 stakeholders and stakeholder keyword families, and then you've got an outcome, and maybe more than one outcome for each. You know, that's totally possible, but they're all discrete. Now you can make them composites. You can say, oh, high school kid with type 2 diabetes who's also gay. And so you could like get it really much more specific. Okay. So basically, you're going to play around with those, and I hope you can see that by developing the stakeholder keyword families and the outcome stakeholder families separately, you can mix and match, and it can get very focused, kind of like binocular vision in a way. Okay, so what this enables you to do is to filter the whole web for these conversations. That make sense? So you really can understand by if you read through dozens of these interactions, especially in forums, you're going to learn a lot about those stakeholders and their outcomes. Okay, so that's, and this is important to mention. You can always like improve things, but they can be you want to get them to a point where they're just good enough to have value to you, and then start using them. Because as you use them, you're going to continue to improve them, or iterate them and create alternative ones. So you'll have a whole bunch, because you never know when you go, oh, I like version 3 and version 5. Oh, what if I were to take a couple of these words from there and you know what I mean? So that's kind of like so that's what we do with this. Once you get those composites of stakeholders and outcome keywords, you can then evaluate platforms, how relevant they are. Because if you're considering this whole concept of, if we're interacting with people, thanks for coming, Andrew.
Thank you.
If we're interacting with people,
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
If we're interacting with people, then we have a greater opportunity to show them that we care about them. For example, one of the things that we do that's really different, and I urge you to try this on your own, is instead of like responding to someone and giving your own opinion or your own content, what we do is connect them with somebody else who's been in that situation and who solved that problem. So let's say the diabetic high school kid. And the parent just found out, oh my God, you know, I was going to be ostracized at camp or whatever, and we're really worried. This is a real conversation that was at Lions clubs, because Lions is really big on eyesight, and type 2 diabetes has a lot of correlation with eye problems. So basically, they're really worried about their kid. So what we do is we find another parent who's been dealing with this for a couple of years, and we connect them. Because someone who's in their same situation, who's like them, is not an organization, has way more credibility with most people than, you know, an organization in digital public. Okay? Yeah.
So you kind of, but like, because they don't know you've been reading all their social media. So how do you say, hi, I've been stalking you, you should talk to this person, right? Like, how do you?
Oh, it's very natural when you're in that environment, because a lot of people, nobody knows each other in these forums, like personally. They're from all around the US and Canada and North America or UK or whatever. And they have that problem. So it's.
Oh, you mean like on a diabetes forum? Or something?
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So basically, so what you can do is you can say, and here I'm going to give you guys an example. And I've chosen this one. That's the, yeah, here. Okay, so let me make this a little bit bigger. Okay, so here's one with a childhood obesity. Okay, you can't see the whole thing there, but these are conversations in which people are talking about children and teens and and obesity, and how to combat that by teaching them about food and often how to cook with food. Okay. There's several organizations. This is not like a new idea, although it's not mainstream by any means. But the organizations have started learning that if kids know enough about food to cook with more or less, you know, unprocessed ingredients, that changes their whole attitude towards food. Because what tastes good, if you grow up having Doritos and Coke or apple juice, that's what you learn that tastes good. You've never tasted like carrot juice or, you know, something else. But if you start making carrot juice, you might go, wow, you know, because when people like do something, they get emotionally connected to it. So anyways, that makes sense? So that's what the search is. So this is the past month. And wow, out of the whole internet, 314 results. Okay. And obviously this is only an iteration 2 search. So this is an example of what I mean. And this is not a stakeholder search or an outcome search. This is this is the initial, and I would like take that further to define it down. Just imagine here, you put in parent or mother or father, and that would get the parental aspect in there. Or you know, grandparents, I would put them in there for certain communities, because grandparents raise their grandkids in some communities. Okay, so does that make sense? Does this make sense to you guys here?
So this is a search of just forums where people are having public discussions?
The whole internet.
Okay.
All the web.
Okay, got it.
And I'm going to show you how to segment it now.
Okay, just for conversation.
Yeah.
And those are your keywords up there that you put in the search.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's the vertical bar? Is that the same as like a or? Okay.
Yeah, that's Google Talk for or.
Okay.
So so basically, so that's
and the same thing.
So you're looking like at maybe 2 or 3 words, right, for each category up there is what, by connecting those
It is,
in your search function.
yeah, it can be a lot. There's a sweet spot. There's a lot of variability in there because when you if the keywords are very not typically related, you might only have 2 or 3 keywords that can isolate those conversations. So I urge you, good practice is having the minimum number that identify that stakeholder outcome discreetly. Okay, like discreetly meaning that it returns that outcome or that stakeholder and not others. Okay, so it could take, depending on the keyword combination, you might need 3 terms, 4 terms, or 5. At a certain point, when you have too many terms, it really it's counterproductive.
What Google does, because I like to put in a whole bunch of terms. The terms, let's say there's 1 or 2 or 3 that are unrelated, it'll put those off to the side and let you see them, that they weren't included in what you found.
Yeah, exactly. Because they want to give you results, and it does. If you there's definitely a thing is having too many words in your keyword family. Okay, so anyway, here's Twitter advanced search. Okay, and of course Twitter, you know, they went to 280 characters so recently that you really need it. It needs its own version. And it works differently. It's a different kind of platform than Google. But, you know, and by the way, I'll be glad to share these slides, and you'll have these links to these searches and stuff in there. So you'll be able to play with them. And once you see how they're structured, and also Google Advanced Search has pretty decent help and guidance online. So this one, you know, there's all these, and again, there's like a few dozen per day of interactions, and some of them aren't that relevant. This is only an iteration 2 search, but you know, you could refine them so that, you know, you don't want hundreds because that's way too much to interact with. You want relevant ones. And Twitter can be fantastic for developing, showing people you care very efficiently, because other people see this. When you're empathizing with the parents of this diabetic kid, and you're connecting with other people, because what you can do when you find a good interaction with somebody who said, oh, here's what I did when my kid was diagnosed and we were really afraid of him being, you know, we would connect them on Twitter by sharing the link of that tweet, okay? And a lot of times, since Twitter is such short form, it'll be connected to a blog post or something. Yeah.
It seems like it's a lot of work because you're developing, you have to kind of maintain a focus on Twitter after you've already put in some keywords and stuff. I mean, coming up with those keywords and then having to dig around some. Are you just putting in the keywords then on Twitter as well and seeing what comes up and then making the connections? Or I'm just wondering, it just seems like it can take, like, this is an investment.
Not that much more than like your investment in SEO or whatever you're paying for. Basically, if you develop the web search one first, the first example I just showed up here, it's easy to winnow out a few of the keywords for Twitter. It's actually not that bad at all. You can do it. And yeah, you might, again, you're going to get good results, but you know, you can always benefit from refining and testing and iterating, okay? But it's usable like pretty quickly.
But I didn't mean like investment of time. Okay, so like ultimately, I think what we're getting to is that you're having like a real interaction conversation with each of these people individually.
Right.
Which I think you're saying that's like a big investment.
Sounds
of time
like
to kind
it.
of
That's
make
what it seems like.
which I can see that, but then I can also see I'm not even thinking, well, actually this organization is a nonprofit. That I don't think of them as a nonprofit, but we do fitness events. And so one of the things I do is like constantly, like I'm trying to build the Chicago calisthenics community, and it's actually not huge. And now that I'm thinking about it, I spend a lot of time talking to, training, engaging people that ultimately like go away. You know, so I'm doing it anyway, like everywhere, messaging them. I just sent yesterday. I sent 4 guys. One guy is like in Australia. One guy is in like Romania. Another guy is like I don't even know. People just like find me, and then I'm always happy to share content. And now that I've done it so much, I can like copy. I personalize it, but I can copy and paste and send. Like this is your training plan. But for all of that I do, 1 out of 100 actually sticks. You know. So now I'm thinking like it does seem like an investment of time, but I'd rather talk to 10 people really deeply than like 400 people that are just like flakes.
Yeah.
that is exactly what and remember that other organizations, if they're interacting at all, are doing so at a superficial level because they have not studied these many-to-many conversations. And when I say study, I'm not talking months or weeks. I'm talking about a few days and not full days, but just really like what makes them tick? What do they really care about?
Right.
Because they won't tell you that, but they're telling each other that in this forum. Okay. And here I'll show you. See, here's the other hack, and I've so basically. Well, why don't I go back to this?
Okay, so I think it's starting to make sense then. And you put it like
Well,
that.
the other thing is you bookmark these things. So you save them, bookmark it on your browser or on a social bookmarking platform because that is extremely powerful.
So let me see if I'm following then. So when you go in and you're finding people within these keywords, these stakeholder types that you've gone in and you found a conversation that's going on, say, like you were mentioning, say the diabetes, and you've got a forum of mothers who are dealing with type 2 diabetes. And by going in there and then seeing, and you're finding a conversation that is very similar to what your focus is through the keyword search. And then by offering, like sending them saying, hey, you may want to read this person's article, which has no association with you at all, but that you've already determined ahead of time.
It does have an association with them, not personally, but it's somebody who has a similar outcome and it's a similar stakeholder. So here's another mom.
To your organization. Say if you're representing the Lions.
Yeah.
By offering I say, hey, you may find this link to momsdealingwithdiabetes.com's article on.
We would be more likely to connect with another person. And maybe they shared that organization's article. So yes, if it's very, very good and focused on the stakeholder, we will share a link to some kind of if it works for the stakeholder. You know, if they're like if it's high school parents, you know, they and again I'm generalizing, but if having another parent that's been through that already has a huge, they want to read that much more than the World Health Organization paper or something like that.
So then I get these searches of forums, and then when you first started talking about this, I was thinking it was going to be more of a search of like public social media conversations, like Facebook conversations, but that's not included in there. And then most people's conversations are not public.
Exactly. Facebook is a horrible platform for interaction. No, we never use it.
That's what I was expecting.
I mean, we use it, but it's hideous. It used to be great.
My understanding is that Google owns it.
No.
Well,
you know,
they've.
Let's move on.
Yeah, we won't put that, but there is a very strong.
So how did you find this person that you said like pointed someone that like you're the expert? the personal this. So you had like if you pointed them to this, like, hey, you should really speak to this person here. How did you even find that person in the first place?
The same thing by the advanced search because they had the same outcome and keyword, stakeholder keyword combination.
Okay.
And then we bookmark all of those so we don't have to re-find them all the time. So we have a library of parents who have hacked type 2 diabetes for one of their kids.
And then you can say, hey, so-and-so.
Exactly.
She wrote about this earlier in the forum. You may want to go back and read
Yeah,
what to say.
exactly.
Okay.
So it becomes very efficient when you like bookmark and tag. That I go through that in the third part of the series because that's if you think today is bad geek wise, it gets worse. But that's how it gets very efficient. Okay. So anyway, what you do is at the end of any keyword, and I apologize, some of you may already know this, you just add this little snippet in there, in URL colon, and then the URL. So that will restrict your search to that platform. Yeah.
I started that I don't know. So the or line,
Yeah.
if you don't put that line in there, is it an and or what is it? If you have no.
In general, it's an and. If there's a space in between the terms, yeah, that's assumed. Yeah. So basically, thank you for asking. There's no such thing as a dumb question here because probably other people had that too. But my point is, so let's say, remember we went back here and we said there were 300, and I'll just show you this right now. Yeah, we had 314. So let's see.
And that's the whole web.
Yeah.
That seems really small.
Well,
for
that's the
whole
point.
Universe.
Well, last month. No,
But even still,
last
it's
month. Yeah.
small.
Well,
You know, the two biggest trending keywords that I could think of at the present time is diabetes. Is a huge, huge problem now.
well,
And opioid epidemic.
yeah. Okay, so here's 36
For the
on
URL
Pinterest.
thing.
Okay, so we could easily compare. Oh, well, let's say this will be fun. Let's see how many there are in Reddit.
So then you need to. So you need an account on, like you would need a
No.
Pinterest account or
No.
Like, how would you interact with the person on Pinterest?
Oh, well, if you
Want to
like,
interact?
see here on Reddit, there are only 2, which is hard to believe, but that's what it says. So Pinterest is not a very, or I'm sorry, Reddit is not a very valuable platform for this engaging this stakeholder and that. Okay, you see what I mean? Once you get these searches, it's very easy to identify what platforms are worthwhile. So let's say, oh, we've got to be on YouTube, and we've got to be on Facebook, and we've got to be on Twitter.
There's
Well,
your number.
now you can say, oh, well, the diabetes forum. That would be way higher.
Now, if you were to search YouTube, does it search comments? within
Yes, of
YouTube?
course. Yeah, well, we can do it right here. But I want to be mindful of time. I know we're over, but do you guys get this now? How you can, and once you get the searches, they're so useful. See, YouTube, 5. Okay, so Pinterest, you know, and so this is how you can do it. And by the way, with blogs, what I found is Google took away, they used to have a forum and a blog search years, like 4 or 5 years ago, and they retired that, which is a pain in the ass. So you have to hack it. And I have hacks in the deck on how to do that.
I'm like curious, like if you click there was like a Korean video. I'm just curious, like what is that video?
Well,
I'll go into.
Yeah,
explore.
you'll have the searches, so you'll be able to play around your heart's content. But basically, blogs, what you can do, just like I showed you right then, you can type WordPress.com, Blogger.com, and this, I don't know what portion of all the blogs, but it's a pretty damn big portion here in North America for blogging. So, that's a very good proxy for what kind of platform. And I would also, don't overlook things like Medium and Tumblr. Tumblr is a little bit more graphic these days. But so basically now I've given you the keys. You can find out what is relevant to each stakeholder and outcome, which platform. Okay, so have fun. Now, forums are messy. This is very imperfect, but it does work. Here's some strings that you can add. It's the same concept, okay? And then I showed you the Twitter advanced search, okay? And obviously, when it comes to experiential, now here's the thing that may not have been obvious. It's one thing to care with individual people by sharing these links, but I really want to stress the point that the audience that observes that caring interaction is way bigger. So it scales. The point though, and I made that point earlier, it has to be authentic and it has to be, because people feel it when you really care. It's a black box, it's a gut feel thing.
Mhm.
You can fool individual people some of the time, but people online will out you if you're being fake after a period of time. So if you are authentic and you're really caring, people will feel it and that will unlock, they will then forward that and get more engaged with, they'll notice you when you interact next week. Okay, you're not doing this every day, you're doing it at some regularity of whatever works for you. And my point is that open platforms are more valuable for because more people can see the interaction. And by the way, you can save links to these interactions and share them with people. So people, like I have, whenever I comment on a blog post, I tag that. So I have like several hundred. I click a link, and this is what these are the people I've helped out online, so I can share that with people if for whatever reason. Okay.
Then this is a question that I don't honestly know the answer to this. I'm just curious. So all of this happens as a result of being able to see what people actually write publicly. In your experience, how much do you think is captured of what people are saying in a digital forum that's publicly available versus not being said? Like, and then
more and more,
mm,
the adoption, I've been in this racket since the 90s, and the adoption, like it used to be, very few people were online. And, adoption rates for various people or topics vary. But the overall trend is it's becoming more and more a piece of the total.
right.
So,
Or at least the people that you're likely to engage with that I think would have the most meaningful relationships would be people who are more prone to speak out publicly about what their topic
they're more
is.
engaged by that because they're
Like
really,
it drew them to say something.
Yeah, so that's
whether a private
self-selected.
forum or public forum.
Yeah,
Okay.
and selfishly, to make this work economically for your nonprofit or your for-profit business, you want to engage people and have other people notice that you care about them. Because if we're having a caring conversation and we're being observed, and of course, based on the topic and the stakeholder, there are going to be more people like that observing, right? Because if, they're not going to be parents of normal kids who are going to want to sit through this diabetes forum, right? So other people like you are going to be observing, and so that's self-selected. You can reach a lot of people.
Right, that makes sense. Yeah. 'Cause
Yeah.
I know a lot of people who don't. Like, I continually tell them they should talk about this stuff, like publicly post about stuff,
Yeah.
and they never do. But
Yeah.
they watch
Yeah.
They admit to watching everything. Like they see everything that happens.
Yeah.
Talk about stalkers.
Yeah.
They know everything, but they never comment on anything.
Yeah, like I never.
So-
I last commented on Facebook like 3 years ago or something. I have like a kind of a technical question. Going back earlier, like when I'm making my first keyword family, I was sort of assuming like maybe you paid Google some money or maybe you had some cookies set up, like it was something pretty technical. But how did you get your first bit of information? Like, did you just someone's Twitter handle when they donated and it was easy to find them? Like, is this kind of a more low tech?
No, usually the context here is a nonprofit. You get around and say, hey, who's most important to us? Like, let's say donations. We're focused on fundraising.
Yeah. So you identify who the people are. What I mean is where I need to get the text that I make my keywords from. Do I buy that text?
No.
Do I know someone's Facebook content? How do I get that
Like
text?
intuition.
Well, you say, well, let's go back to this one about the.
No, I mean, how do I mean,
Where do the keywords come from?
if I type someone in and I'm trying to find their Facebook, I don't have access
That comes from,
unless I'm the friend,
I
right?
think what he's talking about is when you're working with your client, say in the case of the Lions Club, and they're looking for volunteers. So you have volunteers, and then by conversations with them, you can begin to formulate keywords.
Exactly.
And then as you dig,
Oh,
you'll
you
turn
mean
up
just
new
okay?
keywords.
You mean just from? Okay, you start with just normal like old school.
Because they said volunteers,
Yeah,
right?
that's
One.
this
Yeah,
stage.
okay.
That's this stage
Okay.
right here, MVP definitions. And then you make them distinct from each other. And this is just back of the envelope, as good as you can get them. And then you start testing them. You put your keyword families and you iterate them.
Yeah, okay. So first stage is just
Yeah, just the normal
the
way.
ancient form of communicating.
Right, yeah. Rob, you had a question.
So when you're in these forums and places and you're pointing someone to other people, you're doing this as, say, the Lions Club.
Right.
You're like Lions Club of Akron, Ohio, and
Yeah.
that's and then you're like, oh, you should go to read this conversation.
And it's the
which was
Lions
last
Club
year.
handle.
But it's the Lions Club that's
Yeah.
actually
Yeah.
making the suggestion.
We interact on behalf using their account, but that's temporary because we're mentoring them in how to do it, so we don't have to stick around forever. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You have a question?
How does GoFundMe fit into, in related sites like that? Are they effective for the type of thing that?
Don't know. That's outside the scope here. I do have some thoughts on those. I'm studying those. There's a brand new one in Chicago, but let's talk about that afterwards. I want to
Sure,
get
yeah,
through
that's
a couple
fine.
of these others.
Okay.
And this one is going to be very typical for all of you. If you've ever done a project plan, I just have this, this kind of like little structure. This is usually 1 or 2 pages. And this is really important because the next one, this is really powerful to make this work for nonprofits, especially because using these templates, you can make it super easy to roll people on and off the team. And that can be a combination of volunteers and employees or what have you. Is that me?
I think it's my.
Oh, no.
it's my
It's,
laptop.
yeah. Okay. That's
Because I
okay.
was-
But my point is that the team template, these are roles. Let's say you ended up with 3 stakeholders and outcomes. Well, each one of those would have a role connected to it. So you would put out a sheet. So imagine this, it's on 1 or 2 pages, that it describes the stakeholder and the outcome, like a paragraph or 2. Because imagine you're going to give this to somebody who says, hey, I'd like to volunteer and learn this. Okay, so this is kind of like a little briefing document for a new participant, or I call them contributors. And then there's a toolbox in there. You've got links right in. If you make it in Pages or Word, you can put links in there, right? So they just click a button, just like I showed you on this keynote presentation, the last slide, that those advanced searches, to the extent that you have them iterated, I always encourage my contributors to play around and iterate if they want, but that's not required because a lot of people that's too much geekiness for a lot of people. So they get a link, it's click. Like, look at this. Imagine this in a Word doc, and you've got several of these. So you've got the whole web, that's this one. And then let's say we've determined Twitter is good and Pinterest is good for this combination. So we'll have a separate link. Here's Pinterest and here's Twitter. So all they do is click that link and that fires that advanced search. Is that making sense?
Yeah.
So
you have it all set up as
exactly.
so that whoever you've got brought on board can just.
Because if you bring in a volunteer and says, hey, we want you to do social media for us, they're gonna like deer in headlights, like what does that mean and all this.
Yeah.
So basically you've got this, and then you've got goals. Hey, here's what we want you to do. We want you to, and here are the stages. And I encourage you to follow up with me with questions on all these types of things. I mean, I'll stick around as long as you want tonight, but I mean, afterwards too. I'm very happy to help you get this up and running. So using searches to get, so at first, like you've got this 2-page template, team template document, and I put this right in here. Here's one of stages that most team members go through. Okay, at first, I got to get a feel for the stakeholder and outcome. And, you know, anybody can talk to me about it, but like really experiencing these deep, relatively deep interactions, it's just mind-changing for most people. I've been through it with clients. So like, so the first stage is just using the searches and getting a feel for what they return and scrolling through them and, hey, what ones are interesting and what aren't, right? Just getting a feel. That's typically the first stage. And then ones you like, you bookmark, okay? And then stage 3, I encourage this. Now Reddit shocked me that I have to like find out more because usually it's like super engaged. But usually there are a lot on Reddit and some of these other forums. Those are the richest, deepest threaded conversations about any topic typically. And that enables the new team member to really dive into, because on Twitter, obviously, you're not going to have a deep conversation about anything. You're going to be sharing stuff and you can have simple interactions, but on forums, they're deeply threaded and responses to responses. And there's a lot of social and tacit knowledge that people, and I've been through this so many times, it's kind of like a little course. And of course, you don't get someone who's not interested in that topic. See, this is a beautiful way to choose your volunteers. You know, are you really interested, or do you have experience with bike commuting or diabetes or domestic violence? Okay, so this makes it super easy to let people self-select, because you imagine putting this out to your volunteer list in an email. Hey, we're doing this, and here's the persona, like little paragraph, and here's, like, imagine like 2 paragraphs, who's interested, come and see. That enables you to really get people who are very engaged with that stakeholder and that outcome. So it makes it way easier, because if your proposition, hey, who wants to volunteer for our social media team? You know what I mean? So this is like game changing right here in attracting people to do it for free for you. Share, and then after they've been doing this for a while, they'll start sharing content, the links to relevant interactions. That's usually in the beginning. And then the empowering and interacting. You know, if you're coaching them, they're going to get more and more comfortable with that as they like really start taking in and developing empathy for this stakeholder and that outcome. Okay, it's a thing I've been through many times with having new team members. This is typically what the process looks like, and it's really comforting to them that you know this, and kind of like, because if you're expecting them to do this right in the beginning, they're gonna really, they have to really click with the tools and the empathy. And, you know, something you could have a 10-page paper and it's left, It's left brain stuff. They have to get really empathic and experience those many-to-many interactions. It's almost like magic because it happens over and over. Okay? And again, I want to stress this. The point is interaction. We use content, but as a support. Because content is, yes, more specific content is incrementally better, but it pales in comparison to listening to a person and empowering or helping that person. And here's the thing, I did not mention this before, in case it's other people observing will vicariously often feel that you care about them, even though you're not interacting with them. You're interacting with someone who's in a very similar situation or has been. So that's how it scales. Does that make sense? It's really key. So that's it. And here's what we did today. And there are a couple others in the series. And I'll share this deck with you guys. And it has the links in there. And if you have questions, just, I mean, hell, let's just put the questions right in the Meetup under this event. Why not use that platform so that other people can benefit from it? How's that?
Can you put a link to the slides in the Meetup?
Yeah,
comments?
I'll put them on
Yeah.
SlideShare and I'll post
Yeah.
the link there. So you,
Cool.
Linda doesn't have to do that.
Thank you.
Cool. So there's part 2 coming up.
Well, I'd be glad to talk about it, but you know, I'm going to be doing these. I'm very interested in doing them with nonprofits and other organizations because I want to get the word out about this.
Yeah.
And this is a superpower that people are just not aware of. Yeah, it does require doing things a little differently and stuff, but I hope you can see that with some of these tools, and in part 3, we get really into the tools. I'll show you social bookmarking, and you can set it up so it automatically tweets stuff based on keyword or tag combinations. So it really, it's amazing.
Yeah, I have to say, like, I think when I see like social media marketing discussion, like I immediately think about like some sort of like paid or own Facebook strategy. So like I think, which I did not expect this at all. So I think if you like told people like, hey, this is how to social media market without using Facebook, they'd be like, how do you do that?
Oh,
And then they come. And then they
thank
like,
you for that. Oh, without spending money.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate it. And actually, I just put up today